The Hidden Meaning of Truth and Untruth. Part-01.
Jai Sachidanand.
I bow down to the absolute pure soul within all of you, with utmost devotion and oneness. My salutations, my salutations, my salutations.
Jai Sachidanand.
This time we will begin with the hidden meaning of truth and untruth. Instead of beginning with satsang sessions, we will first have the shibir, or the spiritual retreat. Everything gets arranged as per circumstances, doesn't it? Has the bliss arising with the application of Gnan, or the knowledge of the self, remained with everyone throughout the year? I didn't hear anything from this side. Then that's good. Yes, our Gnan keeps us in bliss. And it may happen that file 1 experiences periods of elevation, depression, or some uneasiness, or whatever it may experience. But we can understand that we are in bliss and in the state that is free from agitation and disturbance. I am separate and the file is separate. Comfort and discomfort keep unfolding to settle past accounts. If one sits after walking a lot, he feels very comfortable. And then, if something hurts, he feels the pain, and the discomfort begins. In case he forgets about it, he'll begin to say, I feel better now. If he gets interested in satsang, then he'll forget the pain. Just like that, the non-self complex, or the Pudgal, continues to give happiness and unhappiness, comfort and discomfort. We should remain separate and keep seeing that it happened here, then there, then over there. I'm separate and you're separate. Let's set the 5 agna and remain in the applied awareness as the pure soul. As the karmic accounts of this worldly life get settled, and as files get settled, we will progress towards moksha to that extent. Everyone must have read the book, right? You haven't read it. It's a different matter if you have not understood it. It'll take a long time to understand what Dada is trying to say. But you should comprehend it based on your level of understanding. The hidden meaning of truth and untruth. Let's start reading a bit. On this account, we will worship Dada's speech, the Gnan-laden speech. We will understand the reality of this world from the vision of the Gnani. In worldly interactions, we fight and insist over truth. We say, we're right and you're wrong. What is all this? And the truth that we fight over, does it last? And for untruth, oh, you lied to me, you deceived me. I'll get back at you. What is the value of truth? And what is the value of untruth? And is there something beyond this? We will see the hidden meaning of all of this in Dada's own speech. If we dedicate time reading these small books, then we can understand the difference between the beliefs of the worldly people and the vision that the Gnani has. As one increasingly gets the right understanding, his wrong beliefs, his wrong viewpoints and insistences will go away. Though we continue to have a worldly life, as we understand more and more of these talks, we will learn to live without any attachment or abhorrence. Let's begin reading. We will start with the editorial.
Editorial. Every seeker of salvation makes painstaking effort to attain the truth, to understand the truth. However, as one does not understand the exact line of demarcation between the truth and untruth, one simply becomes entangled in confusion. By providing the clarification on the absolute truth, Sat, the relative truth, Satya, and untruth, Asatya, in these 3 ways, the scientist of the self, Atma Vijnani, absolutely revered Dadashri, has unraveled each entanglement with ease.
There are 3 words given here: Sat, the eternal truth; Satya, the relative truth; and Asatya, untruth. We were aware of only two words, Satya and Asatya. But no, there is still the eternal truth which is above these two.
Sat means the eternal element, the self, Atma, whereas worldly truth and untruth exist in worldly interaction. Worldly truth is relative. It is dependent on viewpoints. Although eating meat is unacceptable to Hindus,
So the worldly truth is relative and it's dependent on viewpoints. By sitting on one viewpoint, he will believe whatever he sees as the truth. Another person sitting on a different viewpoint will consider that as the truth. These are both worldly truths. Whereas Sat means the eternal element, the self, which is permanent and eternal. How is that? Dada explains this in detail. He says, for some people, eating meat is unacceptable.
it is acceptable to Muslims. Where is Sat found in this? Sat is that which is acceptable to everyone. There is no difference in it.
Right, the eternal truth, the self, does not eat at all. Then the argument of eating this, not eating that, etc., does not arise. So the one who understands Sat, he will be able to accept everything. And Sat remains as the truth in the past, present, and future. It never changes, whereas this is relative. It's true as per one's own viewpoint, whereas it's untrue as per another's viewpoint.
God, Brahma, is the truth, and so is the world, Jagat. God is the real truth, and the world is the relative truth.
Yes, we have heard that God is the truth, and the world is mithya or false. But no, Dada says that sentence is from a certain viewpoint. No statement is wrong. It's indeed correct at a certain degree, with a certain viewpoint, with a certain context. If you really want to understand, then the highest vision is that God is the truth and the world is also the truth. Read on.
In presenting this incontrovertible principle, Dadashri has done wonders. No one is willing to believe that this world is an illusion, mithya. How can something that can be directly experienced be considered an illusion? But then what is real? God is the permanent truth, whereas the world is a temporary truth. And with this, resolution is attained.
This is a truth for a certain period of time, and the other is the eternal truth, the permanent truth, and this is a temporary truth.
How necessary is truth on the path of liberation? Where all dualities such as merit karma, demerit karma, the auspicious, inauspicious, happiness, misery, good habits, bad habits come to an end, where not even a single parmanu, the smallest, most indivisible and indestructible particle of matter that touches the relative remains. In such a state beyond duality, from the perspective of the absolute truth, to what extent does what the world consider to be the truth or untruth prove to be correct? Where the real Sat exists, worldly truths and untruths no longer need to be embraced or renounced. Instead, they become a matter to be discharged. They become an object to be known, Nyaya Swarup.
This is a great thing. He said that truth and untruth are both dualities. Merit karma, demerit karma, the auspicious, inauspicious, happiness, misery, good habits, bad habits come to an end. All of these dualities will come to an end. As long as this duality exists, one cannot reach the eternal truth. Dada distinguished between the relative truth and the real truth, where the real truth is without any duality and the relative truth is with duality. Read on.
As long as a person has the desire for worldly happiness, there is a need for allegiance to the worldly truth and rejection of untruth. If a person slips up and ends up supporting untruth, then pratikaman, exact method of reversal from a mistake through confession, apology, and resolution not to repeat the mistake, will protect him. However, when one begins to devote himself to the attainment of bliss of the self, when one begins devotion towards one's own absolute eternal self, the devotion to or rejection of the worldly truth and untruth comes to an end. Thereafter, insistence on the worldly truth becomes a form of impediment.
We're getting detailed explanations on all of this in the book.
Moreover, what should worldly truth be like? It can only be called the truth if it is beneficial, pleasant, and brief.
Yes, it can only be called the truth if it's beneficial, pleasant, and brief. Which truth? The worldly truth.
The fundamental truth is to hurt no one through the mind, speech, and conduct, even to the slightest extent. Yet it is worldly truth.
What is the topmost thing? It's to hurt no one through the mind, speech, and conduct. And it can only be called the truth if it's beneficial, pleasant, and brief. And the truth that does not benefit anyone falls under untruth, as it's harming others. If it's unpleasing, then it also becomes untruth. If it's too long, then also it becomes untruth. That's why to not hurt anyone by any means whatsoever is considered truth.
This is how the Jnani Purush, the one who has realized the self and is able to do the same for others, without disregarding the worldly truth, puts it in the right context and gives us the exact understanding of it. The unperceived meanings of the absolute truth, relative truth, and untruth have been unveiled in this compilation, which provides relief in the course of life.
One binds so many karma in the worldly life when he insists on holding on to the truth. He will say, our way is the right way and you're wrong, and your way is wrong. And that itself is what binds one in the worldly life. One can consider a good thing as good, but he should not have so much insistence on the good that he begins to have contempt towards the bad things. If one gets the understanding of the Sat, then he will be able to finish the worldly interactions of the worldly truth and untruth with balance and without attachment and abhorrence. As Dada says, one can progress without breaking the relative truth. The beliefs of worldly people are the worldly truth, and from the viewpoint of the Gnani, the self is the ultimate, the final truth, the truth that holds good in the past, present, and future. We get beautiful, detailed explanations in this book on how to keep a balance between the two. Let's read.
Page number 1. Heading: The hidden meaning of truth and untruth. Truth, permanent and temporary. Questioner: What is the difference between truth, satya, and untruth, asatya? Dadashri: Untruth is indeed untruth, but this truth as you know it, it is a worldly truth. It is not the real truth. A son-in-law is not a son-in-law forever. A father-in-law is not forever. Real truth, nischay satya, is referred to as sat. It is eternal. And that which is temporary is referred to as satya. This satya once again turns into asatya. It is proved to be untruth. Nevertheless, if you want worldly happiness, then you have to move away from untruth and go towards the truth. And if you want to go to moksha, final liberation from the cycle of birth and death, then it is when this worldly truth is realized as untruth that there will be liberation.
This may seem a bit difficult to understand. The son-in-law. I'm the son-in-law and he's my father-in-law. Is he going to be your father-in-law forever? He'll reply, I got married, so of course he'll be my father-in-law forever. But if you ask him after 6 or 12 months, he'll say, we got divorced because there was a lot of quarreling. Then what about the father-in-law? Now you can no longer call him the father-in-law. So this is a relative truth. It's a truth only until one has a divorce. If they get divorced, then that entire truth is dismissed. Therefore, the worldly truth is such that if you consider it as an untruth, then you will be unhappy. And if you accept it as a truth, then you will be happy. In order to get worldly happiness, one should hold on to the relative truth and move away from untruth. Rise above it. And if you rise beyond the worldly truth of this is my father-in-law and I am the son-in-law, then you will see that this is a relative truth. It's not the permanent truth. The permanent truth is that the father-in-law is a soul and the son-in-law is also a soul. That's why it's said, it's when this worldly truth is realized as untruth that there will be liberation. I'm not going to be the son-in-law forever and he's not going to be the father-in-law forever. When one comes out of this worldly truth to the eternal truth, then there will be liberation.
Therefore, this worldly truth and untruth are both indeed merely imagined. However, For a person who wants worldly happiness, he will have to abide by this worldly truth, such that no one is hurt. This truth is required only up to the time one attains the self, Param-satya.
If you want worldly happiness, then abide by such truth that does not hurt others. Param Satya, or the self, is Sat, and this relative truth is required only until one attains the permanent self.
Page number 2. Heading: There is never any change in Sat. Therefore, as far as this truth and untruth are concerned, what the world considers as the truth is complete untruth in the eyes of God. It is not the truth at all. This is all the result of demerit karma and merit karma, pap punya. The world refers to you as Chandubai, doesn't it? Questioner: Yes. Dadashri: Whereas God will say, no, you are pure soul, Shuddhatma. Sat is the same wherever you go. Sat is the same in every living being. Sat is eternal, whereas this worldly truth is different for everyone. Therefore, it is temporary. This worldly truth exists on the basis of a lie.
The worldly truth is standing on the foundation of a lie. That's because it's relative. Someone will say, today's the 14th day of the moon. Yesterday was the 13th day of the moon. Today's the 14th day. If you call someone in India, they'll say, the 13th day has just passed, and the 14th has just begun. Oh, and what about the 12th day? And so on. So this is all a relative truth. It's in the form of phases. And it's considered the truth on the basis of time, space, and other circumstances. After a while, when the circumstances change, then that truth will be considered falsehood. Whereas Sat, the eternal truth, the permanent truth, is the truth that lasts forever. This is the permanent truth that resides within all living beings.
Questioner: Then do you believe in such a thing as Sanatan, eternal Satya? Dadashri: It is not Sanatan Satya, it is Sanatan Sat. It is considered eternal. The original eternal element, Mood Tattva, is permanent and its phases are temporary. Questioner: Then what does Satya mean? Dadashri: One is worldly truth, Vyavar Satya, which is known as relative truth by the entire world, and the other is the real truth, that is referred to as Sat. It is not referred to as Satya. That which has eternal existence is referred to as Sat, and that which has a temporary existence is referred to as Satya.
People have placed importance solely on the worldly truth. You're doing this? You've done this so wrong. They feel abhorrence towards the wrong and they insist on doing the right things and have attachment for it. And this is the cause of bondage in the worldly life. It's for one to understand that if I insist too much on worldly truth, that will cause pain. And if I go ahead on the path of untruth, then people will be hurt. So I should turn back from that. But ultimately, know the eternal truth. The existence that remains in good in the past, present, and the future is called the eternal truth. And temporary existence, existence for a time being, is known as the worldly truth or untruth.
Heading: Sat cannot be confined within boundaries. Questioner: Then what is Sat? Dadashri: There is no other meaning for Sat. Anything that is permanent is referred to as Sat. Page 3. There is surely no other meaning for it in this world. Sat is the only thing in this world that is permanent, and it cannot be confined within any boundaries. It can penetrate right through the Himalayas. No walls obstruct it, nor do any restraints hinder it.
The Sat discussed here is the same as used in Sat Chit Anand.
Heading: What is the origin of relative truth? Questioner: There is one truth which pertains to the self, Atma. But how did this other relative truth come into existence? Dadashri: It did not come into existence. It has always existed. Relative and real have always existed. The relative has always been there from the beginning. I just happened to use English words, but the word for it in Gujarati is sapeksh. Have you heard of the word sapeksh? So is this world sapeksh or not? The world is sapeksh and the self is nirpeksh, real. Sapeksh means relative. It is called relative in English. People today do not understand the meaning of the Gujarati word sapeksh. That is why I use the word relative in English. Did that surprise you? There are two kinds of truth. One is relative truth and one is real truth. Relative truth is dependent on society. It is dependent on the court of law. It is of no use on the path to liberation, moksha. It is a tool that aids in your development. It helps during development. What is your name? Questioner. Chandubhai. Dadashri. Chandubhai is a relative truth, but it is not completely wrong. It helps you here in your development. However, when you want to realize your own self, this truth will be of no use. On that day, all of this truth will prove to be wrong.
In order to better your worldly life, do away with wrong things and adopt that which is right. By doing this, you will develop further. The relative truth is true in the sense that it's a tool that aids your development. It helps during development. When this development is complete and one comes to the final Sat, then he will achieve liberation.
Page 4. Moreover, how long can a person say, "This is my father-in-law," as long as his wife has not divorced him? Thereafter, if he were to say, "This person is my father-in-law," what about then? Questioner. He cannot say so. Dadashri. Therefore, it is not the truth at all. This is actually a relative truth. Questioner. If he were to say, "He was my father-in-law," what about then? Dadashri. Even if he were to say that, he, the ex-father-in-law, would curse at him because he is angry with the man. Rather than saying that, it is better for him to keep mum and for the other side to keep mum too. Now, the rule is that the relative truth originates only from the relative, and the relative truth means truth that is temporary. If you like this truth, if you like the truth that is temporary, then dwell in the temporary, and if you do not like it, then come to the real truth.
Relative means sapeksh, with respect to something. If a short person is standing next to a tall man, the tall man is tall with respect to the short one. And if an even taller person stands next to him, then he will be considered short. This is all relative truth, with respect to something. And it has all begun from the relative. Anything that is experienced through the five senses is considered relative. The truth that has arisen based on circumstances is known as the relative truth, whereas the eternal elements are the real truth.
Heading. The truth is different for everyone. Questioner. Is the truth different for everyone? Dadashri. The truth is different for everyone, but the truth is of just one type. It is all relative truth. It is temporary truth. There is a need for truth in worldly interactions, but that truth varies. A thief will say, "To steal is correct." A cunning person will say, "To be cunning is correct." Everyone's truth is different. Isn't that so? Questioner. It is. Dadashri. God does not consider this truth as truth at all. Page number 5. The truth that exists over here, he does not take it into account over there at all. This is because this is temporary truth. It is a relative truth. And this relative truth will not do over there. Over there, the real truth will be needed. Truth and untruth both exist in duality. Both are temporary. Questioner. So have we believed it to be truth and untruth? Dadashri. We see things as truth or untruth through the deluded perception, maya. We see that this is right and this is wrong. And moreover, truth and untruth is not the same for everyone. What you may see as truth, someone else may see as untruth.
What you may see as truth, someone else may see as untruth. Meaning all this, and it's due to Maya. The ignorance of the self is called Maya. Until one achieves the elemental vision, he has the situational vision. And in the situational vision, one may see something as the truth, whereas another may see it as untruth.
What this person sees as truth, this other person may see as untruth. So it is not the same for everyone. Oh, what do thieves say? Stealing is our profession. Why are you criticizing us? And we even go to jail. So why do you have an objection to it? We are only doing our job. Thieves too are a community. They too have a stance, don't they? Even the butchers will tell you, we are doing our jobs. What issue do you have with it? Each person refers to his own truth as correct. So what can be considered as truth in all this? Questioner. That worldly truth is multifaceted, isn't it? Dadashri. It is indeed multifaceted, but it is temporary. This worldly truth, relative truth, is only temporary.
Multifaceted means there are multiple phases. Like it's mentioned, the thief has his truth, the cunning person has his truth, the butchers also have their truth. Everyone has a different truth, and a certain community will accept something as truth, and another community will not accept it. They will say, no, this is wrong. Jai Sachidanand.